Shiloh, the battle that broke America. A story told as the men lived it. They said the war would be short. The men in the camps near Shiloh Church believed it. They thought bullets would pass cleanly, deaths would be few, and victory would come like sunrise. They were wrong. Shiloh was not a battle. It was a lesson, and it was taught in fire, mud, and blood. The Union Army of the Tennessee lay in a forest that April. 40,000 men stretched across tents and muddy roads, a makeshift city of soldiers. Campfires glowed, potatoes boiled, papers rustled as letters to mothers, wives, and sweethearts were written. Some men laughed, some played cards, some dreamed of home. They had no trenches, no fortifications, no idea that the Confederate Army had discovered them. To the south, General Albert Sidney Johnston gathered nearly all of the Confederacy's western forces. His men were tired, hungry, and wet from days of rain and marching. Shoes rotted, clothing clung to skin like a second layer. Many slept standing, some whispered prayers. Others stared into the void, sensing the coming storm. Johnston understood the stakes. If the Western theater fell, the Confederacy would bleed irreparably. So he made a choice. Not defense, not skirmishes, destruction. Total, precise destruction. The plan was simple, devastating, and unforgiving. Strike at dawn. Hit before the Union Army could form lines. Drive the blue uniforms into the Tennessee River. No retreat, no mercy. Victory or annihilation. Night fell. The Confederate Army lay in the woods, rifles ready, hearts racing. Some men slept lightly, dreaming of home. Others prayed, others wept quietly, sensing the violence that would come. Across the river, the Union bands played music. Songs drifted through the forest. Patriotic, confident, loud. Confederate soldiers remembered it as eerie. Some later said it sounded like arrogance. Others said it sounded like the music of men already dead. Dawn arrived slowly on April 6, 1862. Mist hung over the forest. Birds sang. Then they stopped. A Union private stirred. He thought he heard movement. He stepped outside and froze. Gray lines moved through the mist, too many to count. They were coming. The shooting began. It started quietly. One musket, then two, then hundreds. Tents shredded by bullets. Men killed while putting on boots. Officers cut down before issuing commands. Confederate soldiers surged forward, screaming, bayonets fixed. The woods became a wall of human violence, advancing relentlessly. This was not a skirmish. It was a massacre. Union soldiers ran, some froze, some fired blindly. Some were shot by friends who couldn't tell the blue from gray. Horses screamed. Fires spread. Breakfasts boiled over beside the dead. Entire regiments disappeared in minutes. The war had arrived, and it had no mercy. Grant was miles away. By the time he arrived, the battlefield had become chaos incarnate. Smoke choked the forest. Commands vanished in the noise. Units tangled together, blue and gray indistinguishable. Men fired at shadows, at sound, at shapes. Some fired at friends. Some fired at nothing. If you've watched this far, you're exactly who this channel is made for. Someone who doesn't shy away from the raw truth. Someone who wants to see history as it really was, in blood, mud, and smoke. You're here because you want the whole story. No shortcuts, no illusions. The Confederate assault pushed the Union Army toward the river. Retreat was impossible. Surrender meant death. There was no escape. Then came the Hornets' Nest. Near a sunken wagon road, Union soldiers formed a line, not because they were brave, but because they had nowhere else to go. They loaded their rifles. They waited. The Confederates attacked. For 7 hours, Men charged into a storm of bullets. Trees fell. Men fell in rows. The noise was unbearable. Thousands of musket shots, cannon fire, screams, the thud of bodies hitting the ground. Some soldiers said it sounded like hornets, angry and unrelenting, the Hornets' Nest. Bodies piled so high men tripped over them to keep advancing. The wounded crawled between legs, begging not to be trampled. Some were. Others were shot anyway. At the center of it all, Albert Sidney Johnston rode forward, believing victory near. A bullet struck him behind the knee. Blood filled his boot. Minutes later, he collapsed beneath a tree. The Confederacy's best general was dead, quietly, unnoticed, bleeding into the mud. By afternoon, the battlefield looked like flesh and soil fused together. Wounded men dragged themselves toward water, only to find a pond already red with blood. Men drowned face down. Others vomited and continued crawling. Some begged passing soldiers to end their lives. And still, the battle continued. Night came. Rain fell. Thunder rolled. Fire spread. Grant refused to retreat. Surgeons worked by lantern light, no anesthesia, whiskey and knives, limbs stacked like cordwood. The screams never ended. Some wounded burned alive. Others begged to be killed. This was not victory. It was endurance. Morning, April 7th. Union reinforcements arrived. Fresh men, steely eyes, cold determination. The Confederate Army, exhausted and leaderless, began to crumble. Step by step, they were pushed back. Units broke entirely. Some disappeared into the woods. Others fell in mud, dying where they could not move. The Union held the field, but there was no triumph. Only survival. Brace yourself. If you're still with me, brace yourself. The story doesn't end here. The second day will show the exhaustion, the relentless grind of men, the slow terror of survival, and the long shadow this battle cast over the war. You're here because you want the truth, and it's about to get darker. The aftermath was horror. Soldiers walked through mud and blood. They vomited. They wept. They cursed God and men alike. Faces were gone. Limbs were gone. Bodies were unrecognizable. Some soldiers walked for hundreds of yards without touching the ground, stepping only on men. More than 23,000 casualties. More than all previous American wars combined. Families across the country received letters weeks later. Some never received them. Mothers wept. Wives screamed. The nation finally understood this was no short war, no noble war. It was total war. Shiloh had shown the face of the Civil War, not the face of glory, not the face of honor, but of endurance, survival, death. Generals learned, soldiers learned, America learned. Trenches would appear, fortifications would be dug, commanders would hesitate. Shiloh was not the last battle. It was the moment the nation truly understood the cost of what it had begun. Men carried it in their dreams, their nightmares, in their very bones. The battlefield itself would never heal, and neither would the nation. If you've made it this far, you're not just a viewer, you're a witness. You've seen the horror, the chaos, and the endurance of men at Shiloh. And if you want more stories like this, raw and unflinching, stick around. Because history's darkest moments are the ones that shape everything that comes after. If you step near Shiloh today, you can still feel it. A place meant for peace, transformed into a machine of death. It was the start of a new war, a war without illusions, a war that demanded everything from those who dared to fight. And when it ended, nothing was the same.